Hi, Bill here. I'd like to have a look at a few opening traps in the CaroKann defence. Okay, so this is just a small number of traps, and of course there are others. Okay, so E4, C6, the CaroKann defence developed by two people, Caro and Kann. D4, D5. Black gets a pawn in the centre, supported by a pawn. Knight defends the pawn. Black exchanges pawns. Now there's three main moves here for black. We've got bishop to f5, the solid main line. We've got knight to f6, inviting an exchange. And we've got what was played, which was knight d7. Okay, so now, there's a funny thing about this position. This, in a game between Alahine, who was blindfolded and playing three amateurs who were consulting, Alahine played queen e2. Not a good move, but sets a little trap. The problem is he's blocking the bishop with the queen. So, a good move for black would have been, say, knight here. Would have been perfectly good. However, the three people consulting played the logical move, and Alahine now checkmated in one move. Knight d6 mate. A smother mate. Very nice. There's a trap a bit like this in the Budapest Gambit. Okay, so, yeah, the moral of the story, if you've got three people consulting, you don't, yeah, it might not be as effective as you think. Okay, next game. Okay, so this time, CaroKann defence again, and we start the same way, and again it's knight d7. Okay, so a couple of moves here for white. Could play knight to f3, for example, but bishop c4 is a reasonable move, hitting the weak square here. Knight g to f6. Okay, so this this check almost does something. But fortunately, after the king takes, knight check doesn't. Yeah, it's not enough to keep the attack going. However, white attacks the f7 square. Black defends it. Queen e2 with a subtle threat. Okay, so what black should do here is knight b6, which will discover an attack. Sorry, it discovered a defence by the bishop. The bishop now defends this pawn. So that will keep black out of trouble. However, if he does, for example, h6, not seeing the threat, white now sacrifices at the base of the pawn chain, so that's the front of the chain, that's the base. So knight takes the pawn. If the king doesn't take, we're going to win material because we're forking a queen and rook. This queen check out is not going to help because bishop d2 hits queen. So king takes knight, queen takes e6 check. King's only got one move. Bishop d3 check, most efficient move. Only one move for black, and now we have mate. So in that position, black needed to deal with the threat of knight takes f7. So in this position, h6 was no good. Or other moves would be, if black did some kind of random move, knight takes f7 would still win. Okay, we'll have a look at the next trap. Okay, so what's happening here? So again, we have reached the same position, and black plays the improvement, which is knight b6. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip the board around because black does. Oops, that wasn't supposed to happen. So I'm going to flip the board. How do I flip the board? View. I'll tell you what, I won't flip the board. It's proving too hard. Okay, so the bishop retreats. Pawn to a5, threatening. Pawn a4, harassing the bishop further. Notice queen takes pawn was not a good move because the knight comes out and comes in and wins on f7. That might be worthy of looking at. another time. Okay, so a3 to give the bishop a retreat on a2, c5, c3, queen c7. Now, when I created this trap, I don't think I had the moves in quite the right order, so I've just kind of guessed on the move order. So knight f3, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. So we've got what looks like a fairly normal position, and white's got an isolated queen pawn, but it looks like the normal thing that would happen, both sides would just keep developing it and castle kingside. However, apparently Karpov had this position, or and missed an excellent move here, which demonstrates the principle of the importance of looking at all checks and captures. So here, believe it or not, black had a way to win a pawn, and the clue is undefended bishop, undefended rook. And the key move is, if you look at all crazy captures, you'll see bishop takes pawn. The idea is, if white takes with a rook, it's going to be bye-bye bishop with check. If the pawn takes the bishop, it's going to be queen c3 check, picking off, well, the rook or the bishop. So black would have won a pawn in cold blood. Between inexperienced players, it doesn't count for much. Between strong players, it does. Okay, so we'll go into the next trap. Okay, so now we've got we get to the basic CaroKann position, and this time black plays knight to f6. So I've covered this in another video. So in the famous Reti Koa game, queen d3, e5, pawn takes pawn, queen check, bishop d2, queen takes pawn, castles, knight takes knight, and now black expected that white would regain the knight with the pin, but he figured that after, say for example, f5, f3, he thought black was okay, but white surprised him and didn't pin the knight, and instead checkmated in 3, which is a lot better than pinning a knight. So he played a brilliant queen sacrifice, drawing the king into a double check, and wherever the king moves, because the king has to move in a double check, it is mate. So he played king c7, and it was mate with the bishop, which is quite remarkable. However, if the king had gone somewhere else, say for example e8, the only other square, then we've got the famous Morphy type mate. So yeah, that was that trap. Okay, now for the next trap. Okay, so now we get to the position we had before. So black has played knight to f6. The simplest move is to swap it off. Black's got two ways to take. In this game he took this way, which is sounder. So that's a developing move, and it keeps his king side safe, so he can castle on that side. The drawback is, if they get an endgame, especially a king and pawn ending, it will be hard for black to create a passed pawn. These 3 will tend to hold these 4 in the endgame because of the double pawn. However, if black can keep pieces on the board, he might be okay. But what happened, so white developed his bishop, black went check. Now, white played a very natural move here, but after he played it, he had to resign. So what he should have done here was queen e2, pinning the queen. But he didn't do that. He played the knight in the way, and after queen b4 check, black picks off the loose bishop on c4. So as they say, loose pieces drop off. And believe it or not, that was played in the Australian Championship between 2 players who are probably around 21 or 2200 FIDE ELO rating. So that was not good. Okay, now for the next trap. Okay, so we start off the normal CaroKann. Now it's the advanced variation. Okay, so bishop f5 is probably the main move here. So it's a bit like a French, except in the French bishop's locked in behind the pawn. Knight comes out. e6, cutting off the retreat of the bishop. h4, probably not the best, but does set a trap. If black ignores the threat, he's in trouble, for example. If he develops the knight, the pawn will advance, and the bishop's caught in a kind of Noah's Ark trap. And white will gain material. Okay, now for the next trap. Okay, so that's the end of the CaroKann traps. Though I'm sure I could collect more if I wanted to, but yeah, that's just a start. Okay, so thanks for watching.